poverty became the focus of his ministry after that civil rights and voting rights, because the civil rights and voting rights is not going to get rid of poverty. And so King saw that as central.
Let's listen again to Dr. King from the speech he made to those striking sanitation workers in Memphis just weeks before he was shot to death. What he said about poverty still rings true.
Do you know that most of the poor people in our country are working every day? They are making wages so low that they cannot begin to function in the mainstream of the economic life of our nation. These are facts which must be seen, and it is criminal to have people working on a full-time basis and a full-time job getting part-time income.
Could anything be more current right now?
No, it's hard to imagine, and of course it's chilling to think what the distribution of wealth was when he made that indictment compared to what it is now. It is much more skewed now than it was then, and it was bad then. So you really get a sense of King's power. I would only caution that we not assume that he undertook these issues of poverty only late in his career. It was part of his message all along. Certainly, if you look at the Nobel Prize lecture in 1964, he says, the world is seeing the widest liberation in human history, not just in the United States, but around the world. And we cannot lose this opportunity to apply its nonviolent power to the triple scourge of race, war, and poverty, what he called violence of the flesh and violence of the spirit. This was a very, very broad vision early on. It's only at the end of his career that he's making witness on that, because he sees his time limited and he wants to leave that witness. He made a wonderful quote when he was arguing with his staff about doing the Poor People's Campaign, and most of them didn't want to do it. He quoted something saying, "At times you must finish with what you have, even if it's only a little."
You remind me that the famous March on Washington 5 years earlier, 1963, wasn't called the March on Washington. It was a march for jobs and freedom. Which goes back to his early concern, as you say.
Actually, King grew up, and he was a child during the Depression, and he saw relief lines, even as a young man, and he was disturbed about that. He came from a middle-class family, but he was disturbed about it then. And even when he got ready to go to Crozer Theological Seminary out of Morehouse, when they asked him why he wanted to go into ministry, he connected it with helping people, helping them deal with hurt and pain. So it's not new for King. King has always been concerned about that. I think it becomes sharp for him at the end because he's accomplished civil rights and the voting rights, and now he sees that he sees the cities burning, and he wants to provide an alternative to riots.
I want to play you an excerpt of the speech he delivered 1 year to the day before he was killed at Riverside Church here in New York City.
I am convinced that if we are to get on the right side of the world revolution, we as a nation must undergo a radical revolution of values. We must rapidly begin the shift from a thing-oriented society to a person-oriented society, when machines and computers, profit motives and property rights are considered more important than people. The giant triplets of racism, extreme materialism, and militarism are incapable of being conquered.
A radical revolution of values.
And the revolution in values is to see people first, to see Lazarus at the gate and not pass them by. So I think the revolution in values is Christian and it's democratic, But it starts with people. They have equal souls and equal votes, and we are very stubborn, human nature, about denying that and wanting to see anything but.
Was it theological?
Oh yes, because people are created in the image of God. If you're created in the image of God, you can't treat people like things. If we are interconnected with each other, we can't treat each other like things. If America is concerned with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, you can't have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness if you're treating others as things.
So what was the turning point that moved it from an understanding of what you're talking about to an actual agenda of trying to achieve it?
Well, I think part of it is a natural progression. If you are totally invisible, you're not even up to the level of a thing yet. The bus boycott, the sit-ins, the freedom rides, getting the right to vote, if you're not a citizen, you're not even up to the table where you can start dealing with these issues. To me, Martin Luther King saw race as the gateway. If you can deal with race and the fundamental denial of common humanity through race, then it opens up possibilities, which I think happened in history. And finally, toward the end of his career, he said, we have an opportunity, now that we are learning at least the beginnings of treating each other as equal citizens, to really tackle what he called the eternal scourge of racism, poverty, and war.
His fight against poverty was multiracial. It wasn't just focused with black people. Well, you can't get that multiracial fight against poverty unless first black people are regarded as persons. So civil rights, that earlier part, is, as Taylor was saying, black people coming to the table. So after they get to the table, if you're going to deal with poverty, it spreads across races. So King was concerned about a multiracial movement against poverty because that's what the Poor People's Campaign was about.
So that would help us understand the colorblindness of that economic and social Bill of Rights that he and the Poor People's Campaign developed in the early part of 1960. The right of every employable citizen to a decent job, the right of every citizen to a minimum income, the right of a decent house and the free choice of neighborhood, the right to an adequate education, the right to participate in the decision-making process, the right to the full benefits of modern science and healthcare. Quite a statement.
And he had a workshop, one of the more remarkable events that never made any news and is not preserved in history, in which he had representatives of Indian tribes, Appalachian white coal miners, Latinos of every different stripe. He had to do hurry-up education on how to tell a Chicano from a Mexican. His rule was, if they are poor, have them here. And half his staff was revolting against that, saying, we are a black movement.
Why? Because they felt it would dilute the impact of...
It would diminish the unfinished agenda for black folks. It would diminish their expertise. Hosea Williams, who was a lovely rascal.
Yes, that's right. That's right. You strongly against it.
You're taking my budget and giving it away to Indians and Mexicans. You can't do that. Yeah. But he had this incredible conclave there of people who didn't know each other and everything. And he said, if we can't agree together that there's a poverty and a common approach that's bigger than race, then we should stop now.